Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. This is Miranda Fullerton with the Weather Service in Pittsburgh. I'm going to give it another minute just because I think a few more people are joining us. So in the meantime, Shannon, I've unmuted you, and Alicia, I've unmuted you. For those who are listening on the call, we are going to be going over a brief review of our impact-based warning tags that are used with respect to tornadoes and also flash flood warnings. And this kind of stemmed from the June 10th event where we did have a tornado debris signature that showed up on radar, and we actually have Shannon Hefferon, she was working the event that evening. She is going to be speaking to the first part of this presentation, and then we will then have Alicia Miller, who's our senior service hydrologist, will speak to some of the changes with respect to flash flooding tags, which luckily we haven't had many of those so far this year. So like I said, I'm going to give it just one more minute because it looks like a few others are still joining us. I'm going to share my screen just to make sure that you can all see. Oops, I believe you can see. Okay, so you guys should be in good shape there with respect to what you're seeing on my screen. And at the end, so this is going to be recorded. This presentation today will be recorded. So for those on your teams that aren't able to join, we will record this and then post it to our YouTube page. I'll send out a follow-up email at the end of the presentation so that you will have the link to that so you can share around. Shannon, are you here?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Okay, so what we're going to do then, I think, is go ahead and get started. Alicia said she's going to mute herself until it's time for her to speak, so that's good. So, okay, Shannon, if you're ready.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Miranda, for introducing me. Good morning, everybody. So we put together this presentation, like Miranda said, in response to the tornado that we had a week and a half ago, but also I guess we had a TDS I wasn't aware of till that day that we had one in April as well. So it's pretty unusual to get these types of situations. So we just thought, you know, we respond to that and also talk about flash flood impact ones since we are a very flash flood office. So, okay, you can go to the next slide, Miranda.
Sure.
Okay, so the highlights of this presentation is pretty much like Miranda said. I'll be talking about the tornado warning, what a TDS, tornado debris signature is, some of the limitations that we have for TDSs, and how's that change with our warnings, how we issue them and when we update them, and how you guys should respond, how we want you to respond to the changes. And I'll talk a little bit about tornado emergency and considerable tags that we put on warnings. We haven't really had that ever here. It's very rare across the United States, but I'll bring that up too. And then Alicia will talk about the considerable and the flash flood emergency stuff. So next slide. So what is a TDS? So NOAA likes to use acronyms a lot. There's TVS, TS, TDS. So TDS is a tornado debris signature. So when I throw in a chat like TDS, that's pretty much what it is. It's a debris signature that's being viewed on the radar. So it's lofting trees or buildings or branches, you know, homes, anything. That's what we're seeing on the radar. And to meet the criteria of a TDS, there's I think we've as offices pretty much put this down as like a standard. So you want to have a rotation couplet, like the velocity. That's everybody likes to look at reflectivity and velocity. So velocity, you need to have that couplet. You also have to have high reflectivity. So anything about like 35 dBz is sort of what we're looking for. Any higher, that's always better confidence. And then the CC is pretty much this low drop of CC that we see, and you can see this on this image. This is not from Pittsburgh. This is actually from my old office in Mississippi. So you want to see the correlation coefficient drop down and also sort of fan out with time, because that's pretty much spreading the debris as the storm passes. And the last one, the number 4, you don't have to have it, but it gives you a higher confidence if you do have it, is you want the ZDR to fall below pretty much to zero. So, and you want to have all these four things on top of each other. You don't want to have a debris signature CC, you know, in another part of away from the couplet or away from the reflectivity. You want everything pretty much in close proximity of each other. That gives you better confidence that a TDS is occurring. So I'm not going to get into the weeds about CE and like ZDR. There's a lot of presentations out there. I encourage you to go look at like dual pole presentations to get into what it means, but we're really talking about the messaging during this presentation, which is what you guys do on TV. So, but yeah, next slide. So I grabbed this screenshot from my radar scope at home and talking about the limitations of debris signatures, and I looked at other presentations before I'm talking with you now. So unless a tornado is violent, it's not going to be lifting things very high into the atmosphere. So anything within 40 nautical miles of our radar, or you know, pretty much the terminal radar, you want everything to be pretty much close proximity to see these debris signatures. As you can see here, I put a dot right over top of the Pittsburgh radar, and I pretty much did a radius to about 40 miles, and so that's 2,600 feet. So that's why we were able to see the Allegheny one in April tornado, and then the one in Beaver a week and a half ago, because they were very close to the radar. Maybe if you got a stronger rotation and got like an EF2 or something like that, you can maybe go out to 60 miles, but you're not going to probably see anything. You know, you could see Wheeling's right on the cusp of this 40-mile radius. Morgantown's not going to even make it. Grove City, all these areas, they have a very low chance of seeing a TDS. So we can't see that high. I mean, the tornado will probably be lower than what the beam is sampling. And I looked also at the state colleges, their radar to see, like, probably Indiana County, Jefferson County. You could probably maybe see TDS is better over there on state colleges radar than our radar. So maybe want to keep that in mind too. But yeah, the limitations of the radar is a big factor. So next slide. So the CC, that's what we look for pretty much. A lot of people go directly to the CC to see a tornado debris signature. So you want to kind of have less than 0.8. And that's pretty much considered to be non-meteorological. So you could see birds and sometimes like insects and bugs, but you can also see debris signatures with low CC. But there's also some, you know, you might run into some problems here. I have this slide here that shows the CC pretty much being noise, and you won't be able probably to see it maybe because of hail melting as it's falling down, or it's just pretty much non-uniform beam filling. So you can't, sometimes, you know, you run into this problem where you have like hail and then you have tornadoes around. So this is just pretty much throwing a wrench in the situation. So but yeah. Okay, next slide. So I grabbed this from the April tornado. I talked with one of my coworkers here. So Miranda has the cursor there on where the CC is pretty much low. So that was at the lowest scan. And then I went up one more layer. And as I was saying before about the CC, sort of it's fanning out. So you could see that low CC, it goes like 0.8 or lower. And then it keeps moving with the storm. So on the right is the velocity, and you can see they're both within close proximity of each other. So that gives us better confidence that a TDS is occurring in this area. So we'll jump on chat, and then we'll change our tag, our warning tag. Hey, there's a tornado debris signature in this. So people should take it more seriously. We want you to take all of our tornado warnings seriously, but this gives our better confidence that something is happening over there, even if there's nobody around viewing this, especially at nighttime. It's hard to see things at nighttime unless there's like maybe a lot of lightning going on, but this gives us, like, this is just what we always want to see, but we're not always going to see it, but this gives us better confidence that something's happening over there. So next slide. Yeah, so another limitation is the delay in the radar. So once you see the tornado debris signature on this low CC, that means it's already happening. It's already 5 or 10 minutes after the fact. So that's why we want you to keep, discussing about the tornado warning, and then maybe after the fact, like you could say, well, this tornado, it's better for people maybe downstream to know that there was a tornado debris signature more so, but the people who already got hit, it already hit them, so they're not going to get that information until after the fact. But and you might also have issues because the tornado is pretty much weak and short-lived. It'll quickly spin up and it won't be captured on radar, because radar, it might just not capture that in the volume scan. So so it's weak, short-lived, and then also it could be touching down in an area that's not hitting anything. It could be in a field like this picture below. I grabbed this from another training seminar, so you could see on the CC there, you could see number 1 tornado, the one on the left, the bigger wedge tornado. You could see the reflectivity and the not the reflectivity, the velocity and the CC, and then the tornado at the picture, but it's not capturing the second one actually. That's mainly because it's so narrow that it's not going to be producing anything on the CC. So you can have a tornado happen and not have a tornado debris signature. So that's pretty much what I'm trying to point out in this slide. The next one slide. So if any of you have been to our office and how we sometimes show you guys how we issue warnings, this is sort of what the GUI is for issuing a warning. So we call it Warn Gen. So when we put out a tornado warning, we'll pick what type of warning it is, tornado or a severe thunderstorm, and then we have all these tags in it. So we usually put, if there's nothing like just a rotation couplet, we'll put Doppler radar indicated. But once we get that TDS, we'll go back in there, and this is the tag we'll use, the one I put in the black box, confirmed tornado. And that's pretty much the tag we'll use. And it'll just pretty much, that'll change from radar indicated to confirmed radar. Next slide. And I look back at papers like, this is from a 2017 study. They were looking at mentions of TDSs and warnings and what other offices have done. So radar confirmed is the most common because it's the default setting. But we do have the capability of going into the warning and actually changing it a bit. So if it depends on who's working. So consistency might vary depending on who's working, who maybe doesn't like radar confirmed tornado. They might use debris signature. They're thinking of like how the messaging will work for the area they live in. So this is just an indication of like the most common is radar confirmed, but there's a few indications of one person put possible tornado with debris signatures, just the verbiage is different. But once you see radar confirmed, which I'm trying to stress out, it's the same thing. It's as seeing a debris signature. So next slide. And I said we'll talk about considerable and tornado emergencies. So I looked back at like Wikipedia. If you just Google search tornado emergencies, they do have a list of all the tornado emergencies in the United States, and I grabbed the screenshot. So they had only 174 tornado emergencies since 1999. The closest ones here were in Ohio. There was an EF4, and that was just last year. And then there was one in also in Ohio in 2016, but that was an EF1. And why was that one considered opposed to the EF4? I think it was because it was hitting an area that was highly populated. So I think they had 10,000 people in this city. Getting like static here. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Shannon, but I can also hear the static a little bit too. So, but I think it just stopped, so you're good.
Okay. But yeah, so I looked around. So we haven't issued ever a tornado emergency in our county warning area, but never say never. So if we did have like a violent tornado, or it was moving through, it was a little much stronger tornado signature couplet, and we were seeing maybe a TDS and stuff like that, and it was moving through like a highly populated area like Pittsburgh or Butler County or something, we may go to considerable or tornado emergency. It depends on the situation. So this was a study that was done in my old office because they get a lot of tornadoes in Mississippi. This was Jackson, Mississippi. I used to work there. And they looked at numerous tornadoes, and the rating they were at, and then they looked at situations where TDSs were occurring and how, after they did the survey, they found like, okay, this is an EF4, but what was the TDS signature back on the radar at the time? And they found this works best for them. Anything above like 9,000 or 10,000 feet, they considered a very strong tornado. An EF2, EF3 is likely. Anything that goes above 18,000 feet above the ground, that's probably even more of a indication that it's even stronger than that. For QLCS tornadoes, like squall line tornadoes, in the study that they did, it's pretty rare to get an EF4, EF5. It's more for these supercell situations. But this is a standard that some offices use to help them communicate, like, should we use a tornado emergency or not, or a considerable tag or not. In this area, like I said, it's pretty rare, but never say never. Next slide. Get static again. Okay, so about the Beaver tornado, TDS. So I'm just pretty much rehashing, like, so why did we change our warning tag from radar indicated to radar confirmed? Was because all those 4 things pretty much was met, where you had low CC, the velocity couplet, ZDR was low, and then you had their reflectivity pretty much was matching up all in the same area. And it was only just like for a scan or so. So it's going to be quick because these QLCS tornadoes, these squall line tornadoes, they move very quickly, and they'll just spin up quickly and then be gone. So this was a picture shot of our track tornado after we surveyed it. And it was also, like I was saying in a few slides before, it was pretty much in close proximity of both of the radars, the terminal radar and the PBZ radar. So it's 13 nautical miles. So we were able to get pretty much a good shot of what was happening. Next slide. So takeaways: what is TDS is? Tornado debris signature. And to confirm it, tornado debris signature, like I said, you need those 4 things: the velocity, the reflectivity, the low CC, the ZDR. If those things they all match up in the close proximity, then you're pretty much good to like put a new tag on this warning. But like I said, there are limitations. You might have a tornado, but not a TDS, so you want to keep that in mind. But what we're trying to, with this presentation, is saying a TDS gives us more confidence. So the language should be more stronger on social media. I think that night on June, I just pretty much want to tell people to take shelter, that this is happening. It's not just radar indicated like all the other sometimes warnings, but there's something happening that we're viewing on the radar. We might have people's eyes on it because it was nighttime, but we noted this debris signature. And then also about violent tornadoes and using a TDS to distinguish between nonviolent and, well, like high-rated EF4, EF5 ones. So, and then I grabbed the next slide. And so I grabbed this from down in Mississippi. I looked at YouTube, and we're not asking you to do exactly what they're doing down there. You don't have to put on the CC scan and try to educate in the spare of the moment the public about like what is CC and talking about that. But I do like his title here, debris indicated, and that might alert people to do something. So once we change our warning tag and maybe see it in chat, and you can ask us, of course, questions like what is this and stuff like that. We want you to like use stronger language and keep saying, this is higher confidence. You don't have to describe every little thing that's happening, just pretty much say, seek shelter, and, confidence is now higher that a tornado is occurring, and just go from there is what we really want you to do. So, but yeah, I think that's it for my presentation. So.
Okay, great, Shannon. Thank you very much. We also have Fred on the line, and I don't know if Fred, you want to speak to anything. I'm going to unmute you if I can. Hold on. Okay, there you go. Because Fred, I know that you and I and Shannon had some conversation on the side about the ability to work with media partners to figure out what the best, course of action is with this, just given the confusion. So Fred, before we go on to Alicia's section about flash flooding, do you have any thoughts that you want to provide?
Yeah, no, I just thanks Shannon for that presentation. It was very thorough, very detailed, because this year has been kind of an anomaly. We've had 4 tornadoes within that radius that Shannon mentioned that have had low correlation coefficients, down, 0.8 and lower. And so we've seen, stronger indications, more confidence that we have potential tornado with the ones over in Armstrong into Westmoreland on April 8th, and then also again here in Beaver on June 10th. So this is kind of something new for us this year with this, and I just kind of want to make sure that you all had the ability to kind of understand, kind of some of the tools that we're looking at. If there's any questions on, about this, how we can help you out with this, if this happens again, how do you want, things to kind of unfold, fire away.
Yeah, and I will, I'll actually unmute everyone at the end so we can ask the questions. I'll stop recording. Unless, because I think Alicia only has a few slides to go through. So we'll just handle that at the end, Fred, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So Alicia, I'm going to hand this over to you now. So when you're ready, go ahead.
All right, I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Good morning. I just wanted to go over quickly some changes that have been made to our flash flood warnings. I believe we had already sent out in advance the changes that were going to be made, where we're going to actually be including tags in our flash flood warnings as well now going forward. And we have actually had the capability of doing this since the fall, but we have not, I don't believe we did this for any flash flood warnings in October. And I think that was the last time we had any warnings out. So thankfully, we've had a fairly dry, I've now probably jinxed it, season so far. But just to give you an idea of what we're looking at now, we have the capability of kind of giving you an idea and giving the public an idea of what the threat level is for the flooding that we're expecting. So in the past, we just had our base flash flood warnings and then flash flood emergencies. I will say that we have issued 4 flash flood emergencies in the Pittsburgh forecast area since 2017. We did 2 in 2017, 1 in 18, and 1 in 19. So we average about 1 a year. But now, starting this year, we can actually add a few tags, so we can do radar indicated or observed, which we also put in the warnings prior to this, but now it'll be in the bottom in the tag. We could also put in the expected rainfall, how quickly it's coming down, how many inches per hour, how many inches in a few minutes even, or whether it's a dam or levee failure. But probably the most important piece for you to take out of this is we actually have now base flash flood warnings, which we will generally use most of the time, especially if we don't have any confirmation that the water is rising rapidly. We're just using what we're getting from the radar. We'll have a base flash flood warning. We have the option to upgrade or go right to a considerable flash flood warning, and this is supposed to be used for more of the rare events where there's significant impacts, water rising rapidly, people need to get out of the way kind of situations. And then catastrophic would be our flash flood emergency. So while we'll still have, it'll have a catastrophic tag at the bottom, this will generally be used still for when we issue flash flood emergencies. And those are very rare events. And if you go to the next slide, I'll just give you a quick example of what how we're kind of trying to delineate between each. I will say in the 2 images for base, we're kind of going with the standard definition, about 6 inches of water standing or flowing on a roadway. There's a picture of a car in the base image, but as you can see in the background, there's people standing not too far away from that car. So it's, maybe that car drove into the water and shouldn't have. Obviously, turn around, don't drown, right? So a base would be our standard flash flood warnings. Considerable, again, as when we're starting to have water rescues, people need to be taken from their homes, from vehicles. People are starting to maybe they didn't drive into flooded roadways, the water came up too fast. And then catastrophic is our very extreme events, like the Shady Side flood or Johnstown flood. Next slide. So kind of already mentioned this, but for our base flash flood warnings, we will use these most of the time as a starting point. They will be alerted over the weather radio. What they won't be is alerted over your phone. So if we start with a base flash flood warning, it will not ping your phone. It will only ping your phone if we start from a considerable or a catastrophic, which most of the time we should not start from a catastrophic. We should be going up, upgrading to that. But if we do start with a base and we upgrade to a considerable, that will ping your phones. So anyway, so the considerable, again, we mentioned, is rare and high impact. Water rescues are being performed, evacuations are required, and it requires more urgent, serious call to action language. And then next slide. Like I said, flash flood warning for emergencies would be the Shady Side, Brady's Bend, Johnstown. It's debatable whether a couple of more recent events, maybe the Washington Boulevard or Bridgeville flooding events in the last few years, could actually have been either considerable or catastrophic. We would need the more urgent language to know that you need to get out of the way of this now. And now we have the capability of doing that, especially for our urban areas in and around Allegheny County. Next slide. So this table just quickly kind of goes over, some keywords that we would use for each of these types of flash flood warnings, and then again tries to explain the use of them. This is going to be a little bit of a learning curve for us, as it will be for you, just because we are very sensitive in this area to flash flooding. We issue flash flood warnings when we feel there is an urgency. So more times for us, we feel that the considerable tag may be needed, especially in our urban areas. But this kind of leads to, well, if there's some uncertainty on what we're seeing on the radar versus what what we're hearing on the ground. If we're not hearing much, this is a great time for us to use the base and then move forward, going up to the considerable and then further if needed. I crossed out in the considerable section of this graphic basement flooding, because basement flooding really should be just an aerial flood problem. That's generally if there's problem areas, poor drainage flooding. If it's become several homes flooded or several basements flooded, then we're talking about flash flooding. So that's all I wanted to cover with this. Again, and it says at the bottom of this table, and it said it on one of the first slides as well, we are trying to utilize the wireless emergency alerts to really alert when there's the urgency that's needed to get out of the way of some of these flash floods. And that's why it's been decided that the phones will not be alerted for base flash flood warnings. It will only be for the considerable and catastrophic, and any upgrades from a base to a considerable or catastrophic. But the weather radio should still go off for all three of these as a start. If we upgrade from a base to a considerable, that's where it will not re-alert the radio. So we would have to make the determination on whether we would need to do anything further to get that out to the public. And that's where we would hopefully use you to do that as well. So that's it. That's all I have for my slides, and I can take any questions here at the end.
Sure. Thank you so much, Alicia and Shannon. Also, thank you guys both for these great presentations. I'm going to stop recording now, and